Monday, it was 30%. By Sunday, it was 40%. By Sunday afternoon, 50%. And as of this morning, it sits at 60% and still climbing. That is just one number from just one storm system out of an entire week where practically every forecast I have pulled up has moved in the same direction, worse, day after day, across multiple separate hazards at the same time. I am not exaggerating for effect this morning. I want to walk you all through exactly what has been escalating across this country's weather picture this week, piece by piece. Because I think the cumulative picture is genuinely more significant than any single one of these stories on its own. Let's start with the number I opened with, because it is the clearest, most literal example of a forecast worsening in real time that I have seen all season. A tropical system out in the Atlantic, originating from a low-pressure area southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands that merged with a separate wave moving off the African coast, has seen its formation and odds climb in a nearly straight line across 4 consecutive hurricane center outlooks. 30% on Saturday, 40% Sunday morning, 50% Sunday afternoon, 60% as of this morning's update. The National Hurricane Center now expects this system to organize into a tropical depression by the middle of this week, as it continues tracking toward the Lesser Antilles, and forecasters have specifically warned that the environment near the islands is expected to turn less favorable right around the same time the system arrives there, setting up a genuine race between organization and hostile upper-level winds. Now let me walk you all through what else has been escalating alongside that system, because this tropical story is not happening in isolation this week. The Weather Prediction Center's own forecast discussion has been describing daily chances of heavy rainfall and severe weather sweeping across the central and eastern United States, driven by a dynamic area of low pressure migrating toward the Ohio Valley, with a trailing cold front producing rounds of thunderstorms that keep regenerating across the upper Midwest, the Mississippi Valley, and the southern High Plains. I want y'all to understand what daily chances actually signals in a forecast discussion like that one, because it is not describing a single pass-through event. It is describing a pattern that keeps rebuilding itself day after day across essentially the same stretch of the country, which means if you live anywhere in that corridor, the forecast for your specific area has likely looked worse with each passing morning rather than better. At the same time, storms have been building across the middle of the country. Dangerous heat has been building right alongside it across the southwest and the Intermountain West, exactly the kind of simultaneous trough and ridge pattern I've explained to y'all before, where an active storm track digging into one part of the country reliably reinforces a building ridge of high pressure somewhere else. That heat has been compounding an already serious drought and elevated wildfire risk across the interior West, and it connects directly to a story I covered for y'all just last week. Oregon's wildfire season has now officially become the worst in that state's recorded history, surpassing 2 million acres burned, with more than 24,000 residents having been placed under evacuation orders at the peak of the crisis, and forecasters warning that additional lightning activity expected across northeastern Oregon in the coming days could spark an entirely new wave of fire starts on top of a firefighting effort already stretched to its limit. And then there is Puerto Rico, where an entirely separate crisis has been escalating on essentially its own daily countdown. Water rationing began this past Friday across San Juan and 6 neighboring municipalities, more than 180,000 customers now going 48 hours without running water before their service rotates back on, tied to a drought so severe that July ranked as San Juan's driest month in more than 120 years of record-keeping. The island's governor herself has said plainly that she does not know how long this rationing will need to continue, and that nothing currently prevents the situation from getting worse before it gets better. I want to explain why all 4 of these stories are worsening simultaneously, because I do not think it is a coincidence, and understanding the shared driver behind them actually helps make sense of why this particular week has felt so relentless. This year's strengthening El Niño sits underneath essentially every one of these stories at once. It is driving the increased wind shear across the Caribbean that has kept this Atlantic season's overall storm count below average, while simultaneously allowing this one specific Cabo Verde origin system to organize as it takes advantage of a temporary favorable pocket further out in the open Atlantic. It is contributing to the amplified, wavy jet stream pattern responsible for this week's simultaneous severe weather corridor in the east and building heat dome in the west. And it is the same broad atmospheric pattern suppressing rainfall across the Caribbean that has pushed Puerto Rico's drought to its current historic severity, with meteorologists there specifically citing the strengthening El Niño as the reason they cannot confidently promise relief arriving on its usual late August timeline this year. Let me walk y'all through exactly what I want different groups of y'all watching for over the remainder of this week, because the appropriate response really does depend on where you live and which of these escalating stories applies most directly to you. If you live anywhere across the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, or Puerto Rico, that climbing tropical system needs your daily attention starting today, not next week, since its odds have already shifted meaningfully within the span of a single day more than once over this past weekend. If you live anywhere from the upper Midwest down through the Mississippi Valley and into the southern high plains, treat this as an active, severe weather stretch requiring a way to receive warnings that does not depend on you staring at your phone around the clock. If you are across the interior West, including inland California, the Great Basin, and the Pacific Northwest, this building heat is not a one-day event to simply push through. It is a sustained public health hazard, actively elevating wildfire risk in a region already dealing with a record-breaking fire season. And if you are anywhere connected to Puerto Rico, whether you live there or have family there, understand that the water crisis has genuinely no confirmed end date right now, and planning around that uncertainty is more realistic than assuming relief is right around the corner. I also want to say something about why I think a week like this one deserves to be covered as a single, connected story, rather than 4 separate, disconnected updates. When severe weather, extreme heat, wildfire danger, tropical development, and a genuine humanitarian water crisis are all escalating simultaneously across different parts of the country and the wider Caribbean, it means emergency management resources, from local first responders up through state and federal support, are potentially being pulled in multiple directions at once rather than concentrating on a single, well-defined threat. That is exactly why I keep emphasizing personal, household-level preparedness so heavily on this channel. Because a resilient household with its own supply kit, its own evacuation plan, and its own clear understanding of local risk is simply less dependent on external resources arriving quickly during exactly the kind of week where those resources are stretched thinner than usual across multiple simultaneous crises. So let me bring this together and answer the question in this video's title directly. Are you ready? If you have not checked your emergency kit, your evacuation plan, or your family communication plan recently, this is exactly the week to do it. Because virtually every major weather story unfolding across this country and the Caribbean right now has moved in the same direction since Monday. And that direction has been worse, not better. I do not say that to alarm y'all unnecessarily. I say it because the data genuinely supports it, and because I would rather give y'all the complete connected picture than let any one of these 4 stories slip past unnoticed while you were focused on just one of the others. I will be tracking every piece of this evolving week closely, from the tropical system's climbing odds to the severe weather corridor working through the central and eastern U.S., to the wildfire and heat situation across the West, to the ongoing water crisis in Puerto Rico, and I will have updates out for each of these individually as new information comes in, rather than waiting to bundle everything into one video days from now. If this breakdown helped you see just how much has genuinely escalated across the country's weather picture this week, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because I want to make sure y'all get every update as these stories continue to develop. Share this video with anybody you know dealing with any one of these hazards, whether that is the tropics, severe storms, heat and fire, or water scarcity. Because a week where the forecast keeps getting worse every single day is exactly the kind of week where staying informed makes the biggest difference. I will keep watching the map for y'all, and I will see y'all in the next one. Stay weather aware, and I love y'all.